In a world obsessed with titles, attire, and appearance, the greatest minds often walk among us unseen. She cleaned their floors, cleared their glasses, folded their napkins. But when a rich CEO mocked her into sitting across the chessboard, the game that followed would become the most whispered about moment in that mansion's history. For what began as a joke ended in silence. The Chateau Elmsworth loomed like a symbol of wealth, standing proud in the Pinewood Hills of Massachusetts. A private estate known for its exclusivity. It was where executives from Ralston International gathered each year to disconnect from their billion-dollar worries. If only for a weekend. The air inside buzzed with polished ambition. Shoes clicked. Over marble, laughter echoed off priceless art, and the scent of cigars drifted like a fog of power. Althea Washington moved quietly through the back hallways, her soft-soled shoes making no sound as she carried a silver tray of chilled champagne. Flutes. Her uniform, crisp, black and white, hid the history of 1,000 days no one cared to ask about. She had worked here for 3 years. To most of them, she was simply the maid. But beneath that quiet gaze was a different truth, one that had roots in a chessboard she hadn't touched in over a decade. She had no idea that today, life would ask her to dust off that part of herself. Let the sharks swim in circles. That was how CEO Lawrence Keene described his colleagues. At 52, with salt and pepper hair, a jaw that clenched like a fist, and a presence as imposing as a courtroom judge, Keene didn't believe in humility. He hosted this retreat every spring, partially to reward his top brass, but mostly to remind them who held the real power in the lounge that evening. The oak-paneled walls cradled his chosen elite executives, strategists, and investors sipping whiskey from etched glasses, boasting about numbers and conquests. A roaring fireplace cast amber glows across their designer suits. Laughter erupted as Keene leaned back and gestured toward the grand chessboard near the piano. No one here dares challenge me anymore, he smirked. I need new prey. That's when someone laughed and joked, why not let the help play? Might be the only fresh competition you've got. A round of chuckles followed. Then his eyes found Althea returning with a fresh round of drinks, Keene said, pointing casually. What's your name again? She hesitated, a tray still in hand. Althea, sir. Well, Althea, you know how to play chess? She blinked. Yes, sir. A few eyebrows raised at that. Keene tilted his head, amused. Perfect. Come on. Let's see if the help can move a pawn without knocking over the board. Another ripple of laughter. Someone whispered, this should be good. Althea paused. She looked at the tray, then at him. May I set this down first? Keene's grin widened. By all means. She walked across the room, set the tray on a sideboard with a grace that could have belonged to royalty, and then returned. The fire crackled louder as she took the seat opposite him. The chessboard between them gleamed in heirloom set pieces, carved from ebony and ivory. Keene toyed with a knight in his fingers and said, you can be white. Ladies first. Althea's face revealed nothing. She studied the board. It had been years since she last played back, when her father would set it up on their porch in Georgia, always starting with the same line, remember, baby girl. Even pawns get to become queens. She reached forward and opened with e4. There was a subtle shift in the air the moment Althea's fingers released the pawn. It wasn't just a move, it was an invitation. Not just to the game, but to something none of them could yet name. Keene chuckled. A classical opening. All right, Maid. He replied with e5, as expected, already planning to crush her with a quick kingside assault. His ego didn't allow room for the idea that she might offer resistance. To him, it was still entertainment. To her, it was awakening. The game unfolded slowly. She mirrored his tempo, her hands steady, her gaze firm. She didn't blink when he threatened her bishop. She didn't flinch when he attempted a fork. In fact, her defenses felt oddly, familiar. He leaned forward. "You've played before, yes, sir," she replied softly. "Many years ago?" Me grunted, now focused. "Who taught you?" "Another maid." She paused. "My father. He was a janitor, the state champion in Georgia." That silenced the room for a second. A few of the younger execs shifted uncomfortably in their seats. No one was laughing now. Keene resumed play. He launched into an aggressive line knight to g4, preparing a bishop sacrifice. She countered cleanly. He adjusted. She saw it coming. 10 moves passed. 15, she maintained center control. Keene's brow began to sweat. The silence was no longer polite, was reverent. Someone whispered, "She's good." Another muttered, "Better than good." Your opponent's loudest move hides the quietest mistake, her father once told her. He smelled of engine oil and sweet pipe smoke. Most people treat chess like war, but it's a conversation, a patient one. Every night after work, he'd sit down with a worn board. No TV, no distractions, just him and her. He didn't believe in coddling. He taught her to calculate 7 moves ahead. He made her read Grandmaster games aloud. He died when she was 17. She hadn't played since, but now, with a fire roaring behind her and a CEO glaring across the board, it felt like he was right there again. Move after move, the room around them faded. No more laughter, no more posturing. Just the sound of wooden pieces clicking and sliding, echoing like footsteps. In a memory, Keene's jaw tensed. He sacrificed a rook to open her defenses. She repositioned and collapsed his queenside structure. "Where did you learn this?" he asked, more serious now. "I told you, sir." From someone who wasn't afraid of silence. He didn't respond. His bishop advanced. She trapped it with her knight, forcing his king into a cramped corner. Then came her rook. He tried to delay it, thrust a pawn, blocked with a knight. Traded pieces, she didn't blink. Then dashed 13 minutes later, she whispered, just loud enough for the fire to hear. "Check." Keene inhaled sharply. He hadn't seen it. Check. Such a small word, so soft on the tongue. But in that room, spoken by a maid across the marble chessboard, it hit like a thunderclap. The CEO stared at the board. No matter how he re-examined the positions, no matter how many times he traced the angles, the pawns, the threats, he couldn't find a clean escape. His king was exposed. The air, once full of elite conversation and shallow laughter, now felt like it had weight. Keene's hands hovered, hesitated. "No rush," Althea said gently. Not sarcastic, not smug. Just steady. He looked up. Her eyes weren't mocking. They were calm, centered. "How did I miss this?" he muttered, more to himself. Althea said nothing. From behind, one of the assistants whispered, "She's 3 moves away." There's no out that made a ripple. Even the junior executives, most of whom couldn't recall the rules of en passant if their salary depended on it, could feel what was coming. Keene moved upon his last gasp. She responded. By shifting her rook, he countered. She brought her queen into alignment. A pause. His eyes widened. Then came the final move. Click, checkmate. There was no applause. Not at first, just ... BREATHLESSNESS. No one moved. No one spoke. Keene leaned back in his chair, looking not just defeated, but disarmed, like someone had pulled the ground out from beneath him. Althea slowly stood. "Thank you for the game, sir." It was a simple statement, graceful, respectful, but it held power. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Finally, that wasn't luck. No, sir. He rubbed his temples. Then, a strange sound escaped his throat. A chuckle, Goddamn. Now. The applause came tentative at first, then fuller. Then several people stood, not for Keen. For her, the night moved on, but nothing felt quite the same. Conversations shifted. Some avoided her gaze out of shame. Others approached with genuine curiosity. One woman in a navy blazer leaned over. "That was incredible. Why didn't you ever say you could play?" "No one ever asked," Althea replied. An intern followed her into the kitchen later. "Why died?" "Can you teach me?" She smiled. "You have a board. I can get one. Then I'll teach." Later that night, in his private study, Keen poured himself a drink with a hand that still trembled. T stared at the chessboard, replaying. The loss like a courtroom deposition. He wasn't angry. That surprised him. He was ... moved. For the first time in years, he felt challenged not by competition, but by conscience. He pulled out a yellowed newspaper clipping he kept in his drawer. An article titled, "Remembering Robert Keen, Janitor by Day, Chess Prodigy by Night." His father, the one he ignored at parties, the one who played in tournaments, Keen never bothered to watch, the one who died before ever hearing the words, "I'm proud of you," from his son. He looked at the headline. Then at the memory of Althea, her eyes, her poised on, for the first time in years, Lawrence Keen cried. Althea returned to her quarters that night with no sense of triumph, only the kind of quiet reflection born from rising to high in a place where you were never meant to stand. She sat at the edge of her modest cot in the service wing, removed her shoes, and exhaled. The chessboard had taken more out of her than she expected. Not mentally, she'd been sharper than ever, but emotionally. That match wasn't just a game, 'twas a reckoning. For a long moment, she stared at her palms. Hands that had scrubbed floors, folded linens, cleaned up after people who had never once asked her name. The same hands that had delivered checkmate. By morning, the story had spread across the mansion. It slipped through conversations like steam under a door. "Did you hear? She checkmated him. Flawless. He invited her as a joke and got humiliated." The narrative twisted depending on who told it. But the essence stayed the same. The maid beat the boss. By lunchtime, Keen summoned her not with arrogance, but with something else. Maybe curiosity. Maybe guilt. She entered his private office expecting the worst. What she found instead was a man changed. He stood as she entered. A rare gesture. "Althea," he said. "Sir." He nodded toward the seat across from his desk. She sat back straight. "I owe you an apology," he said. She blinked. "Sir, I didn't just underestimate you. I disrespected you. I made a joke. And you turned it into a lesson." He slid a piece of paper across the desk. A check. It had 5 digits. She looked at it, confused. "Sir, I don't want it's not charity," he said quickly. "It's recognition. You earned it." She hesitated. "You could give that to a scholarship fund for girls who love chess." He blinked, then smiled. 2 weeks later, Keen kept his word. With Althea's help, they launched the Queens in Silence initiative, a mentorship and scholarship program to bring chess into underprivileged communities. Althea led the first workshop herself. The school gym smelled of dust and hope. Dozens of young girls stared at the boards in front of them, unsure of what to expect. She walked among them, correcting posture, suggesting tactics, sharing quiet wisdom from a father who once taught a maid to be a queen. News spread again. But this time, it wasn't whispers in a mansion. It was headlines in national outlets. CEO checkmated by Maid, a game that changed everything. From cleaning floors to cleaning clocks. How Althea Washington schooled a boardroom, the woman who taught a billionaire humility one day. A call came from a tournament director in New York. "Would you consider competing again?" She was quiet for a long time before saying, "Yes, Not for me, but for every girl who's never been seen. The tournament hall in Manhattan buzzed with tension and curiosity. Grandmasters milled around in crisp jackets, whispers clinging to them like lint. Journalists lined the back wall. Chessboards gleamed under halogen lights. But all eyes drifted toward the quiet woman in a charcoal dress, her hair in a low bun. Her expression unreadable. Althea Washington, the maid who checkmated the CEO, had become more than a story. She was now a symbol, a living refutation of every stereotype. Every laugh at someone's expense, every dismissal of invisible genius. She didn't come to win glory. She came to finish a promise. To her father, to the girls in the gym, to herself. Her opponent was 20 years younger. Ranked, smug. "You sure you're in the right place?" he asked as he adjusted his jacket. "I believe so," she answered calmly. He opened with an aggressive Sicilian. She countered with a subtle Nimzo-Indian hybrid. 3 moves in, he leaned back, squinted, and began to reconsider. 10 moves later, he was playing defense. In 20, he blundered. In 25. Checkmate. The crowd stirred. One journalist leaned to another. That wasn't just a win. That was a dismantling. She advanced, and advanced again. Every match, every game, she played not with flamboyance, but with unshakable clarity. Her strategy wasn't just precise, it was poetic. Her fame spread beyond chess. Podcasters interviewed her. Educators cited her. Young black girls lined up to shake her hand. She began giving talks not about her own victory, but about who isn't sitting at the table in most rooms of power. The championship match drew a global live stream across the board. A reigning grandmaster. Eastern European, ice in his veins. But she wasn't there to fear him. As the game neared its 40th move, the board echoed a shape she recognized. A pattern her father once taught her. A trap. He didn't see it. She sprung it, click-tock checkmate. The room stood. Thunderous applause. Cameras flashed. Up. But she didn't raise her arms in triumph. She simply turned and looked skyward. Quietly, she whispered, "That was for you, Daddy." In the months that followed, Althea declined endorsement deals and refused TV cameos. Instead, she doubled down on queens in silence. With Keen's backing and her vision, they opened chess academies in underserved cities from Atlanta to Oakland. One rainy evening, Keen visited the Atlanta branch. He wore no suit, no entourage, just him and a wooden board. "You still play?" he asked, setting up pieces in the lounge. She smiled. Every day. They played in silence. Mid-game, he paused. "You ever think about how strange it was? What? That I invited you as a joke?" She looked at him evenly. "No, I think it was how the queen taught the king." He smiled and made his move. In a world obsessed with titles and status, this story reminded us of something deeper. A maid invited as a joke. Silenced an entire room with one simple word. Checkmate. But this wasn't just about a game. It was about perception, pride, and the power of being underestimated. Here's what we learn. Lesson 1. Never judge someone by the uniform they wear or the job they do. Brilliance can live in silence. Dignity can wear an apron. Lesson 2. True power doesn't shout. It waits. And when the moment comes, myth moves. Lesson 3. Life, like chess, is about strategy, not status. It's not about where you start. It's about how you play. Lesson 4. Even a pawn can become a queen. That's what her father taught her, and she proved it. Lesson 5. And perhaps the most important, when you rise, lift others. Althea didn't ask for fame. She created opportunity. She showed us that legacy isn't built in the spotlight. It's built through action, through grace, through courage. So the next time you're tempted to overlook someone, Remember this story, because the quietest person in the room might just be the one holding the next winning move.